Hello, this is the Landscape Ontario podcast. I am Scott Barber. On this episode, I'm joined by Domenic Richichi and John Trainor from EIO Solutions. ELO started working with EIO a little over a year ago, looking to their HR expertise when it came to the pandemic. They were instrumental in helping us, as well as many members, manage evolving mandates, staff changes, and other employee challenges. Now, we're excited to announce that we're launching a new partnership with EIO to offer ELO members with a free HR hotline they can use 7 days a week to get professional advice on HR issues. This is a brand new member benefit, and it's available right now. We think this is going to be really valuable to our members. It'll help business owners create even better working environments. That's EIO's forte, helping small businesses create better workplaces that in turn attract great employees. We're going to talk about the new HR hotline, as well as another key HR topic, which is getting staff engaged and fully bought in on health and safety. Our conversation is coming up next. So Domenic and John, thank you very much for joining the podcast today. Really excited to talk about the partnership that we have with Landscape Ontario and EIO Solutions, including this brand new member benefit, which is this HR hotline that's going to be available or is available now to ELO members 7 days a week. And we're going to get to that in a couple moments. But first, I'm hoping, John, Domenic, would you tell us a little bit about what EIO Solutions is and what it, has to offer business owners, particularly in the landscape horticulture space?
Absolutely. Thanks, first off, for having us today. So EIO Solutions, while we do employ a lot of HR experts on our end, like Domenic on this call, who's got, I think, over 30 years experience in the industry, we're not exactly an HR firm. What we actually do, we call employee investment optimization, or EIO. So the way we see it, like when a lot of people do HR, they're kind of just ticking boxes and they're doing things because they have to be done, like filing paperwork or doing health and safety reviews, but they're not doing a lot of thinking about why they're doing things or why they're doing them a specific way. So from our point of view, everything we do to manage employees, so every hour spent and every dollar invested should ideally lead to a better working environment. It should lead to employees wanting to work for you more. So that kind of new version of HR, which we kind of think of as like HR with intent, that is employee investment optimization. It's doing all these things in such a way as to kind of manage resources and create better working environments. That's us in a nutshell.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. I think that's a great, at least introduction to what EIO Solutions is all about, and clearly why Landscape Ontario has, been really excited about this partnership that, has been going on for, I want to say the better part of a year. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but, it sort of started with, could you talk about what it sort of started with? What's sort of involved in this partnership? And then maybe we'll move into this exciting new hotline.
Yeah, absolutely. So for the past, year and a bit, our experts like Dom have kind of been knowledge sharing with the folks at Landscape Ontario. I believe we worked internally with you guys a little bit as well, just to discuss some of your internal operations and whatnot, and kind of help with some HR issues on that end. And then, we've been conducting webinars, especially over the course of COVID, to help members kind of adjust to new regulations, new sort of health and safety mandates, just to make sure that everyone is staying compliant and keeping people healthy and at work. And I think, as you said, this is kind of just continuing to evolve as we kind of find new ways to help members. And the latest iteration of that is this new hotline.
Awesome. Before we jump into that, Domenic, could I ask you what is it about ELO and the typical business member of our association that makes sense, do you think, for EIO? And I guess why did this partnership make sense for you guys?
I would say because the industry it's a challenging industry to be in, the landscape industry to begin with. I mean, it's, as everyone knows, it's seasonal. Unless you're doing snow removal in the winter and regular stuff in the summer, but it's one of those industries where it's very, I would say it's like quick paced. I mean, you're hiring people, you're getting jobs done, you're trying to do as much as you can, during those short, summer months, to get things done. And when you're doing that, a lot of things get missed. A lot of the ELO members that I've met, they came from, they started cutting grass when they were young, and they just said, eventually I want to open my own business. So they know how to do the landscaping part. And when it came to taking care of the employees, like I'm saying, it was like it's quick pace. I'm going to hire, what have you, and they never really had the knowledge background as to things that they should be doing to attract the employees, to be compliant, to reduce liabilities, things like that. And the majority of the ELO companies are, I would say, more on the small to medium size rather than the large size. So they really don't have, let's call it like HR people on their staff. And I think that's where this relationship really bloomed, if I could use that word. Just because of, we're able to provide that support through using our system, and it just elevates each individual business.
I think that's exactly right. Yeah, as you said, I mean, there's so many small business owners that are in that Landscape Ontario community. They probably got into landscaping because they're passionate about horticulture and passionate about building outdoor spaces. Maybe not because they had the business, background necessarily, but they've sort of created a company, and that's why something like EIO Solutions can really be, I think, a big help for that type of business owner. Some of the things we're doing, this HR hotline, obviously mentioned a couple of times, but I know my excitement for it's probably pretty obvious because it's brand new, just launched this week when we're talking here in late June. So let's talk about it. John, can you tell us a little bit about what it is and how it works?
Absolutely, yeah. So it kind of is exactly as it sounds. It's a dedicated hotline that members can call, text, or email, or even kind of go online and join a live web chat to ask any question they can think of regarding human resources. It's open 7 days a week from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Eastern time. And typically members will need to leave a message. Dom, Frank, and our experts do man the phones, but we can't catch everything like right away. So we will typically aim to respond to every question within about an hour or so. But in some instances, it could be longer, but our goal will always be to have an answer within 24 hours, barring that it's kind of within the 7 to 7 timeframe.
Mm-hmm. That's pretty cool, and I should say, like, this is a member benefit. If you're a member of Landscape Ontario, this is something that you have access to by virtue of being a member. So I think that's probably why I'm so excited about it as an LO staff person, somebody that cares about the association. It's a really cool, really new kind of benefit to our membership, which I think is great. I should ask both Dom and John, what kind of questions would you expect? Like, what are the types of things that you would anticipate, a business owner might be looking to ask somebody like EIO Solutions on this kind of hotline?
I'll take that one. Like I mentioned to you earlier, Scott, we're already starting to getting calls and emails already from landscape members, and we're getting questions from employees not showing up for work, employees that just leaving work with no reason. We actually had a COVID question, questions about having certain policies in place. We had a question about specifically health and safety, how to take care of a certain incident that they had and what the next steps should be. Those are the ones that we're already starting to get, but the range is literally endless. Anything to do with employees, reach out. Because at the end of the day, I remember when I first started in HR, it's basically, if anything has to do with employees or party planning, call the HR department, right? And that's basically what your members can call us for, is, except for the party planning, we don't do that, but anything to do with employees, we would take care of.
And you mentioned health and safety, and that's sort of where I'm hoping maybe we could go next, or segue to,
Sure.
because it's obviously it's one of the most important HR topics out there. I mean, there's a lot to HR, but health and safety, is certainly at the top of the list. Could we maybe go there and talk about, what are some of the important things that employers need to be thinking about when it comes to health and safety? It's changed a lot over the last couple of years with COVID, with the pandemic that, continues to impact business owners. What are some things a business owner should be thinking about when it comes to health and safety? John, would you maybe want to take that one?
I'm actually going to let Dom run with this one for
please.
a while. He's got a couple decades of HR experience on me right now. So, Dom, why don't you share some insights?
Yeah. No, absolutely. Scott, that's a great question, and we could talk about this forever. But if I could just summarize health and safety, what I always tell clients is, don't think of health and safety as, listen, I have to do this because I have to stay compliant. I don't want the Ministry of Labor to come and shut me down or give me orders and all that stuff. I personally believe that's the wrong mindset when it comes to health and safety. Health and safety does play a huge role in the overall HR function of the company, in the overall culture of the company. It plays a great role because it shows the employees that the employer does care for their employees by having a good health and safety program. Having that program also attracts employees to come and work for you. You can be the employer of choice because ABC landscape company does care, as opposed to XYZ company that just basically said, no, let's get this done, do this. Yeah, don't worry about safety issues, just go and do this. It just gives that wrong, it gives them the wrong culture. And when you have that type of culture, that's when you run into other issues in the sense of, your employees, as soon as they can find a job somewhere else, whether it's for more money, sometimes even less money, they're going to leave. And then the turnover starts. And now you're really struggling because you're not concentrating on finishing that landscape. You're concentrating on building my team, and you're constantly doing that because you just can't retain them. So that's the biggest advice I always like to give companies is think of it as it helps with the overall culture, not just I have to do it because I have to stay compliant.
For sure.
Right. And that's kind of the core of our philosophy at EIO in general. If we're all about kind of creating more value for employees and creating better working environments, something that we always have in the back of our head is, how do we do that without spending a ton of money? Because you want to keep employees happy. You could just give them $15,000 a year in benefits, whatever it is, but that's cost prohibitive for most of us. So how do we show them we care? How do we create value for them at either low cost or no cost to us, and kind of handling health and safety correctly? That's really a no cost thing. That's just implementing the right policies and conducting meetings and doing these things to make them feel safe. That's kind of an intangible benefit that you can provide to them. Like, you can't even put a dollar amount on like them feeling comfortable and confident at work, and that's no cost. Like, the difference between how good they feel about that versus how good they might feel of an extra dental visit, like what one costs more, which one do they value more? It's kind of one of those things. It's it's not that hard to do, but it actually creates so much value.
For sure. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So with health and safety, you talked about, of course, it's about policies. It's about, following best practice when it comes to implementing them. You sort of talked about that, John. What are some of the ways, I guess you can have the best policies in the world, but how do you make sure that your employees are bought in and really, living those things or acting on them? Could either of you talk a little bit about, how do you as a company, business owner, really ensure that everybody's bought in and engaged in terms of your staff teams?
That's a good question as well. That's probably one of the biggest issues we find out there, not just in landscape, but manufacturing, construction, is how do you get the buy-in? And now you mentioned, Scott, about you can have policies and what have you. That's one reason why. One thing I always say, and John alluded to it earlier, is that I'm not a big fan of HR consultants. And we don't deem ourselves as HR consultants because HR consultants will come in and say, here's a binder, here's the policies, go nuts. right? And when you have that, it overwhelms everyone and gets to the point where they don't even look at that anymore. I've gone to so many companies where if I ask the question, do you have a health and safety manual? Literally the employer will turn around, grab a book off the back shelf, blow the dust off and go, yeah, it's right here. Because it's not just about the policies. It's about what you do after that, right? So what I think is important, number one, is that the employer must put safety first, basically, in the sense of, yes, you have to get this job done, but plan it out so that it's done in a safe manner. If someone's not following the policies, then you have to discipline accordingly or coach them accordingly. Getting the staff involved when it comes to putting together policies, I think, is very important as well. Because people that are, let's just call them on the front line, they're the ones doing the job. So why not talk to them and say, okay, listen, we're digging a hole. Here's what I'm thinking we should do. What do you think? And get their input. And if you get their input and incorporate it and train it accordingly, you'll get more buy-in rather than just having something, for lack of a better term, stuffed down their throat, right? So it's all these little things that happen along the way. And I think one of the most important things is having a proper supervisor who is trained, because that's your frontline person that handles, let's say, those teams. It's very important that they're trained in the policies, that they know, how to do the job correctly and safely. And if a employee is not doing it, then how do I coach that employee? But always have safety first, because once you have that, that should be top of mind rather than, okay, we have to get this done, we get this done. Because that mentality, what happens, the employees get to the point saying, okay, we have to get this done by 5. I forget about my safety shoes or forget about my glasses. Let me just get this done. That's, again, and as John alluded earlier, that's how it ties into the culture. You want that culture where people are thinking, okay, we have to get this done. Here's how we do it safely, move on.
For sure. And really good supervisors, you mentioned that. I mean, I think is worth its weight in gold when it comes to being that role model on the job site. Somebody that can really be like I said, role model to lead by example and be a leader. So maybe that's a good way to plug. We have a supervisory program through the GROW program. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's for folks to get supervisory training, and it is free. So if any landscape business owners are listening and they have staff sort of in that mold, you should definitely consider checking that out with the GROW program. That just came on. I couldn't help myself, but you're right, because it is so important that you have that good leadership right there on the job site with your managers. Okay.
If I could just add to that,
just
when it comes to supervisory and managers, what been happening for decades, let's call it, is when companies pick a supervisor, it still happens to this day, 9 out of 10 times, that they pick Bob because he's been here the longest. That really doesn't mean that Bob is going to be the best supervisor, right? The most knowledgeable person isn't necessarily the right manager. They could be with the right training, what have you, but again, that's a mindset that people need to change. And when they're assigning a supervisory role, you got to look at yes, you have to look at knowledge, but you also have to look at the type of person, their people skills, what's their knowledge on the health and safety side? Do they know how to coach? Things like that. If not, you have to coach them. And this is one of the things that we do at EIO is we give everyone a free health check, which we ask these questions. Who are your supervisors? What's their background? How did you put them there? And it really brings out some gaps, let's call them, where they need to concentrate and bring them to the next level, so that then everything kind of falls in place thereafter.
For sure. And if I'm not mistaken, Dom, that's something that's available again to LO members if they're interested in getting that health check through EIO, having those conversations. Should definitely be checking it out. I'm going to make sure that in this show notes, the podcast notes, to have a link to both the HR hotline and to that health check.
It's free of cost. We don't charge for the health check.
Exactly. So if you have questions like that and you're a business owner, should definitely consider doing it. And anything else on the health and safety side that we haven't touched on yet? Obviously, you mentioned off the top, we could talk about it all afternoon. But,
we can, yeah.
But is there anything pressing that you think you'd want to share, or is that a pretty good, at least, introduction to some of the issues?
I think that is a great introduction. I think that only thing that I probably add is, and I think we did a webinar not that long ago about training. That ties hand in hand when it comes to health and safety, and it also adds value to the employees, and they will see that you really do care for them because you're on top of the training. But not only doing it once, but doing it on, let's say, an annual basis, or depending on what type of training it is. For example, I don't know, forklift training has to be done every couple of years. Make sure it gets done. Don't let it lapse, because that's another way that you can really improve the culture into a positive, culture, and to help retain your employees.
For sure. I mean, it shows that as a business owner, you really are on top of it. You really do care that your staff are, at their best, and that it's a priority for sure. And that speaks to the culture aspect. Okay, so maybe where we go here is just to talk about some of the other big issues that perhaps down the line, maybe these are things that the three of us can get together again and do another podcast episode. Are there other big issues that business owners should be thinking about when it comes to their human resources? Like I said, that perhaps these are things we could dive into on a later conversation.
Yeah, Dom, I'll let you run with that for a second. I just wanted to pause for a second and just say, like, if any member listening kind of has questions about big topics they would like to cover, they can shoot us a note. They can get in touch with the hotline, or just I think they can contact us at just hello@eiosolutions.com, and we can put together full webinars if there is something that we do need to dive into in depth, or again, Scott, we can come back here. So we want this to be like a bit of a collaborative thing with members. We get to talk with them, we get to understand some of the issues, but if things are pressing that definitely require a deep dive, let us know and we can totally go into more depth.
Awesome. Thanks, John. Dom, do you have any thoughts on, again, a bit of a big question, but what are some of the things that you think people should be thinking about?
Yes, absolutely. Well, I think that we'll start off with a couple of things. I think that recruiting is one thing that people should be thinking about. I think that a lot of people still, I guess we can call it, they still do it the archaic way, in the sense of, okay, let me put an ad out, get a ton of resumes. They read a resume, just from reading a resume, they think, okay, I can pick Bob, he's going to be fantastic. I think that has to get to the point where you can't just hire a person. I think you got to start off by hiring the right person. And one thing that we like to recommend is doing what we use, predictive index, and I think EIO does as well. And it's just a tool that gets used where you kind of match up the role with the person, and a little bit of science gets involved to pick. Out of these, 50 resumes that you have, well, here's the top 10 the more closely you fit the role that you're looking for. So it gives you a better opportunity to just hire the right person right from the beginning, to get them in the front door, and basically increase your chances of them staying longer, rather than, okay, I'm going to hire Bob because I like his resume, which, by the way, people can they write their own resumes, just so you know, so they can write whatever you want to see. So that's the other reason why I like, we recommend this other way. But let's get the right person in. It'll increase your retention, and you reduce your turnover. Right.
For sure. And it's a lot probably easier to spend more time and be really thorough and thoughtful in the hiring process than the time you take in the turnover, in the finding another person mid-season when things are crazy busy. That kind of thing is just going to cause that much more aggravation and lost productivity. So if you spend more time being thoughtful, using things like predictive index, and really get the right person at first, you're going to save a lot of time and money down the line.
Yeah, and that's one thing that we pick up, again, just referring back to the health check, is we pick up things like what the turnover is and what have you, because there's actually a cost to turnover. And a lot of business owners don't really realize that because it's not an item on in their accounting statements, where there's under expenses doesn't say turnover, but it actually is. There actually is a cost, and you kind of alluded to it, Scott, in the sense of you're in the middle of the season, people are leaving, and there's time involved and there's costs involved to find, post, review resumes, get them in, and then train a brand new employee. There's a cost to that, right? And so that just basically says that, okay, if we get the right person in, that should reduce that cost. So you're concentrating more on landscaping and getting it done, and what really makes you money at the end of the day.
And that's again, like the mindset that we're really trying to preach here at EIO. It's understanding that like you're going to spend money somewhere on this problem, whether it's in recruiting the right people or it's in like replacing people who like turn over and quit on you kind of spontaneously. Turnover is extremely expensive. So why not just kind of take some of that money that you would spend down the line, invest it up front, get the right people in the door, and then, improve the culture, keep them there longer, maybe get like people who can then go into the grow program and become your supervisors, as opposed to, just kind of spending what we kind of deem like waste to deal with the turnover.
Basically being proactive in a bunch of ways and being more efficient with the resource.
Which is a lot easier to do when you can start to quantify the costs of that reactive way. As Dom mentioned, it's hard to actually tally up what turnover is costing you. But if you start to think about it, it's okay, it'd be like 3 weeks before I can hire a replacement. That means I'm paying overtime for this. Like you can quantify that. And once you get $1 on that, you're like, oh, shoot, I should be willing to spend that exact amount of money to hire the right person, right?
Sure. So you mentioned, John and Dom, that there's been a bunch of lunch and learns, webinars. There's lots of great content from EIO Solutions already up at Landscape Ontario, at our website for members, which is horttrades.com, at our Landscape Ontario YouTube channel. More to come. I believe there's something coming up in July here. So hopefully by the time people are listening to this, they can go check it out. And as you mentioned, John, you guys are interested in feedback. So if LO members, if you're a business owner and there's a topic you'd love to hear about, definitely reach out. I think he said it was hello@eiosolutions.com. Send it to our membership team at Landscape Ontario. Reach out to our member services team. Let us know. We want to hear from you. We want to continue this. This is great information for the membership. Anything else, guys, we should talk about before we call it an episode and look forward to the next one, perhaps down the line?
I think I guess the other thing that we could just touch on a little bit, and again we can do another podcast on it. And it's something that we look at as well, is looking at, and every company has it because they have to attract employees, is their benefit program. And employers kind of look at it, again, they look at it as an expense. Our philosophy is we look at it differently. We need to look at the benefits more as a tool to help, again, attract and retain. And what we kind of do is we're very data driven, and we look at the analytics when it comes to the benefits and where the members are using the plan, where they're not using the plan, and where we can go in and we can, we can make the plan more valuable to the employees, so they can use it. As an example, you can have health spending accounts. You can have, maybe your younger employees, they can go to a gym, have a gym membership, rather than, not using it at all because they're young and they're not sick. But at the same time, you can even take your benefit plan and not necessarily save money on the plan, because that's what employers do. They every year it goes up, and then they're looking at slashing the plan. They're looking at slashing the plan. The value goes down, but why not look at the plan where we can make it more efficient? We could probably even free up some cash, but then you reinvest it back into your employees. Like we have actually an LO member where we have done that, and they use that extra money to start an RSP plan. So if you look at the money they were spending prior to EIO, and then after, they're spending the same money, but now they gave more value. So they got benefits that they actually use, and now they have an RSP retirement plan. So it's all about optimizing the investment you do put in your employees, and not just looking at it as an expense.
For sure. And it sounds like in many cases, it can be a real win-win for the employer and the employee. And the employee gets the flexibility and is able to have a benefit plan that really makes sense for them and where they're at. And obviously from the employer side, it's, they're spending that money, and hopefully it's going to, help them retain and attract, great people to their company. So it sounds like
it just goes back to our health check and all about the culture. Everything ties into each other, right? Sure. So that's our mindset when it comes to all that stuff.
For sure. Well, I certainly appreciate both John and Dom, you guys taking the time to chat about some of these things. I think this HR program is going to be a great thing for LO members. If you have, certainly if you're a business owner, you should consider reaching out for the health check, the HR health check, excuse me. And yeah, it all sounds like great stuff. And I hope we can, maybe we have a conversation about recruitment or benefits, maybe both down the line, because I think those would both be really beneficial to business owners in the LO community. So thank you guys so much for your time, and I look forward to chatting again down the line.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks so much for having us, Scott.
You're very welcome. Take care now.
Bye.
Bye-bye now.
Thank you for listening to Landscape Ontario podcast. We hope you'll subscribe to get a new episode every month.